Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Glazier, and I am a proud disabled gay man from Washington, Pennsylvania. I would first like to thank Maria Matzik for inviting me on today and apologize that I cannot be on this live due to a prior commitment. I will first share my coming out story, then I would address some policy that I feel need to be addressed. Growing up, I was very much in the closet. Even though my family were friends with people who were gay, I was not sure how they felt having a gay son. Throughout my teenage years, I lived in a small town in Greene County, and I was not liked by almost everybody in my school because of my disability, so coming out as gay was out of the question. I use a wheelchair to get around in a communication device to speak and was in regular education classes. My brother and I were teased because of my disability, even though I was elected class president in 6th grade. I did not even tell my parents that I was interested in another disabled boy romantically that I met in 2001. I fantasized about going back to his room because I knew it would not happen at that time. That was my very first crush I ever had on another boy. Of course, in my activism and advocacy work with ADAPT, a national grassroots organization made up of disabled advocates and activists that engage in nonviolent civil disobedience, I have met a lot of disabled gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people from different parts of the nation. It is truly a rainbow of people all striving for one goal: equality and freedom for all. The Americans with Disabilities Act, which we are celebrating today, is one tool in an arsenal to combat all forms of bigotry and discrimination against people with disabilities in the United States. With the ADA, my life is easier. Curb cuts and ramps make going places easier in my parked chair. Reasonable accommodations such as note takers, moving classes, and extra time on exams made it possible to complete my Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. I rode Greyhound to Rochester, New York, and Megabus to Washington, D.C., as well as utilizing both fixed route and paratransit to get around my town. I even could get on the Pittsburgh T, literally Mr. Roach single quad-car S trolley, with my attendant and go to Pittsburgh as Pride festivities by myself. Although air travel is not quite there, it is coming into the next century. I looked up to queer leaders in the disability community and the disability rights movement, such as Anita Cameron, one of the panelists, Robin Stevens, Bruce Baker, and others. I have always preached to parents that young people need to have heroes and role models regardless of who they are, and being gay or transgender is no exception. Pride and other LGBT events should always be accessible to everyone, whether it is sign language interpreters for deaf or hard of hearing, accessible seating for wheelchair users, or braille handouts for the blind. The LGBTQ community and disability community should be natural allies. My first experience with gay pride was when I was an intern with the Center for Disability Rights in Rochester, New York. Before that, I never knew that bigotry against the LGBTQ community existed on that large of a scale. As I was marching down the street as part of the group from the Center for Disability Rights, I heard protesters spewing hate speech in the name of Jesus Christ. I have to wonder, How could you live with yourself as a Christian and advocate the genocide of a certain group simply because of who they are or who they love? Some even want us dead and have advocated the genocide of gays and lesbians. When I hear the word genocide, I think of Dr. Jack Kevorkian and Professor Peter Singer of Princeton University, and others who advocated killing people with disabilities through euthanasia and assisted suicide, because our lives are somehow less valuable than a non-disabled straight person's. Professor Peter Singer advocates for animal rights with no euthanasia, while he advocates that babies born with a disability should not receive medical care and be left to die, to quote, save them from a life of dependency and high medical costs, unquote. I think why? Not trying to sound cliche, but all lives have value and should be protected at all costs. People are just as worthy of life as stray animals. When I got home, I was confronted by one of my attendants who told me that I shouldn't have gone to the Pride events. That hurt me. No matter who you are, we always have to celebrate your differences with pride. My first really strong feelings were for one of my brother's friends who was flirting with me all day, or that is what I tell myself it felt like he was doing. I was so overcome with emotion that I could not act on, or pursue, my feelings of intimacy for him. Much of that was also because I did not know if his house or apartment was accessible. I have yet personal care attendants who told me I was going to hell for being gay. Some did not like the signs on the back of my chair and told me about it. I had to humor them, but it hurt me inside, because having attendants who did not accept me for who I am was not a good situation. I have even lost friends because of being gay. However, I have gained a lot more respect and a different set of friends. Since coming out, none of my doctors, service coordinators, or other medical professionals have discriminated against me due to my sexual orientation. My primary care physician told me the story of how he taught another openly gay doctor who currently works at the same clinic as him. That doctor is on the health committee at our local Gay Straight Alliance. Come to think about it, I have never felt I was wronged by a healthcare professional because of my sexual orientation. All the doctors that I have seen are cool with my sexuality, and I have never felt discriminated against. Even the managed care organization I use hires folks who are LGBTQ. Of course, they have a non-discrimination policy that prevents them from discriminating against the queer community. My situation may be unique in that I came out when I was older, even though I knew when I was younger. I had my own apartment, and I was on my own. My family has been very accepting and supportive, taking me to Pride every year and buying me flags and different things. However, there are several youths who are LGBTQ that are not in a safe, welcoming environment or are put in dangerous situations unnecessarily. The number one reason for youth homelessness in this nation is not being accepted by their families. Youth homelessness is a preventable problem, and it should be. I can only imagine how hard it could be for disabled LGBTQ youth who are not accepted by their families. I am lucky that I have support from my family and friends who hooked me up with a local gay-straight alliance and disability rights groups. Peer support is very critical for all marginalized people, and being in a nurturing environment is crucial for success. What is worse are these conversion therapy centers and quote-unquote schools operating in the United States who claim to cure not only homosexuality, but autism and other mental health issues through the use of electric shock among other inhumane forms of torture as discipline or therapy, and claim its use to make them quote-unquote normal. I was horrified when I found out that this is happening in the United States in 2021. This is an extremely dangerous practice no matter what or whom it is used on. It is torture, pure and simple. I would like to thank and applaud the Food and Drug Administration for working to put an end to this horrible practice by outlawing it. Those quote-unquote professionals who recommend conversion therapy or other forms of medically sanctioned torture need to be held criminally accountable. I would like to thank President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Secretary Janet Woodcock for working to pass the regulations that will stop the torture, stop the shock, and free our people. No kid or young adult should ever be put in a position where he or she is subjected to physical or mental harm by a person or an institution simply for being who they are or who they love. From the COVID-19 pandemic, we have learned how dangerous nursing facilities and other institutions are. We saw how easily transmissible a deadly disease can be in a congregate living situation. No matter how safe someone is, you can be absolutely safe in your own home, let alone in a setting where living quarters are so close together. This is why the Disabilities Integration Act and other healthcare legislation are so crucial for how 22 years old Olmstead decision among other legislation to be fully realized. Former President Donald Trump was adamant about a wall on our southern border to keep people from illegally immigrating into our land of the free to escape horrible living conditions. When I hear wall, I think of the walls of nursing homes and other institutions. I want to read you two quotations from President John F. Kennedy's speech in front of the Berlin Wall in June 1963. Quote, "Freedom has many difficulties and democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in, to prevent them from leaving us." Here is the second quote, "While the wall is the most obvious and vivid demonstration of the failures of the communist system, for all the world to see, we take no satisfaction in it, for it is, as your mayor has said, an offense not only against history but an offense against humanity, separating families, dividing husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, and dividing a people who wish to be joined together." The walls of the nursing homes, hospitals, schools, and other institutions are no different than that of the Berlin Wall or a Southern Wall to keep immigrants out. It is an offense not only against history but an offense against humanity, separating families, dividing husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, and dividing a people who wish to be joined together, all in the name of care. Now is the time to pass the Disability Integration Act, DIA, and finally free our people. I urge this audience and my viewers to call, text, email, or safely visit your senators and congresspersons and advocate they pass not only DIA but also the Equality Act as well. The plight of the disabled LGBT community has made great progress, but we are not there yet. We have seen positive strides in both communities since July 26, 1990, and every year we should celebrate our victories. But to achieve total equality, we must unite and work together so our children can lay their hands over their hearts and say one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And here is the key: know those words in the Pledge of Allegiance are true.